Good morning, you guys. This is Rachel Kirkland here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube Q&A time. It is another week and another video. I do these every week, so if you're new to the channel, please feel free to subscribe, share, like, hit that bell to get the notifications to find out when I do new videos. Also, if you're interested in finding out more about what I'm about, my individual one-on-one sessions that I do online via Skype and phone or here in person in San Antonio, Texas, as well as any of my classes, any of these psychic development classes in the multiple levels that I help kind of move you through and encourage you through your own psychic connections. If you're interested in anything like that, then please go to my website. I have so much info there, and there's a great way to just connect with me, find out what I'm about, find out what I have to offer that may resonate with you, that you may use as a tool on your own path in your own journey. The website is themodernshaman.net. Okay, so here's the question for today. I'll just read it. This is actually a follow-up question to the video that I did last week, that I posted last week. And if you haven't seen that, you'll want to see that first. That's about Earthbound Spirits. And so I'll read the question and then we'll dive into it. So she said, I really enjoyed this video. This may be a subject for another video, but I'm wondering, once we set a visual dimensional boundary, such as the sphere that you were speaking about, how do we anchor that? What keeps that in place? Is it something that we need to do repeatedly or repeatedly confirm, or are we powerful enough once we create it, it will always exist? Thank you. Okay, so like I said, this is a follow-up question, so it's kind of like part two to something that I mentioned in the previous video. And I talk about creating kind of dimensional boundaries, dimensional spaces or constructs, these spheres, bubbles, where you can help house entities or energies that may be coming to you for help, so that there's a sense of spaciousness to their interaction with you and your own multidimensional experience in your waking life, what you're doing, so you're not, brushing your teeth and constantly overwhelmed by all of these things when you're trying to just function in your regular waking life. Now, this may not be for everyone, but if you are dealing with this, if you are dealing with an onslaught of energy or kind of stepping up your sense of psychic boundaries, you've done the traditional kind of shielding yourself, but there's more tools for navigation of how you want to interact, how the pace at which you want them to be involved in your life. This is monumental in order to feel your own sense of personal balance and sovereignty in your multidimensional experience, navigating the non-physical realm as well as your physical realm. Okay, now I will tell you, I love this question. I just feel like it's an intelligent question. You can tell that you were listening and processing, and it reminded me, I got the phrase that Jesus often said in the Bible about those that have ears to hear will hear, those that have eyes to see will see. So he said those phrases a lot, and they're translated a little different depending on what version of the Bible, but I always loved that because I always felt like it was like a secret code of like, if you're truly listening, there will be comprehension at the level at which you're capable of receiving. And all communication happens like that, right? On multidimensional levels, on so many layers of the onion. And we're always receiving it from spirit in the ways, in the frequencies, in the layering in which we resonate. And I love that because I feel like you received that video, and then the question came back in a resonant energy, very clear and precise. So I'm going to move into kind of explaining this, but I will preface it by saying those that have ears to hear will hear. This may not resonate with everyone. It may not be relevant for your experience, which is completely fine. It doesn't need to be. And it is powerful information. This is part of originally why initiation schools, ancient mystery schools, these had levels of development to them that required a level of sincerity, integrity, alignment within the heart center before some of the sacred knowledge or ancient mysteries or techniques were shared. Not because of anything negative, but because of how powerful the information truly was. And in this case, this is similar to learning how to create portals, how to create dimensional constructs and utilize them. And so I would just encourage you first to line up with a sense of deep integrity with this practice. Be conscious and awake to what you're doing. There is nothing inherently wrong about innocence in being naive. But when we move into this level of conscious creation, it requires a vibration that has a sense of integrity, of purity, letting go of the dense negative power sense of why this information would be used. So I just want to preface with that and encourage you to move into a heart space that feels like this is in harmony with the way that you would choose to use it. All right, if that makes sense to you. Okay. And again, I trust from the higher guidance that those that have ears to hear will hear what's resonant and relevant for them. All right. So the way that you create these dimensional constructs, and let me give the example that was on that previous video, but I talked about the questioner, she wrote in about having earthbound spirits come to her, needing help to transition or needing help in some way. And they were just bombarding her. So there was an overwhelmed energy and they were bothering her household, her family. So I encouraged not just the sense of psychic boundaries and guidelines and rules, but an actual space, a holding space, what I call my waiting room. And this to be outside of the house to create a sense of a sphere or a bubble, okay, in order to house those entities and energies and then guide them to that location to wait there until they're called upon for you to interact with them. This is huge for me in my daily practice because I have a home office. And sometimes these energies, I don't often work with earthbound spirits, but I interact with a lot of energies that are in the non-physical realm. So it's very useful to me to have that sense of external location in a dimensional way. So it's not over me all the time in a sense of interaction. So that being said, the way to create those in a very plain way that I use is sacred geometry. This is the best way that I have found. It came to me very intuitively. I saw the image. I'm highly clairvoyant, so I typically see the imagery first, and then I try to translate what spirit is telling me, or I tune into that with my other psychic senses to translate the message of what I'm seeing, why I'm seeing it this way, and kind of go through the details. So the way that you create that space or construct, that dimensional space, is that essentially it's with use of the merkaba or the Star of David, the two triangles, one upward and one down, okay? And when you are wanting to create a space that is anchored and you ask this question, how do we anchor it? I would encourage you to anchor it unless you want it to be tethered to something or follow you around. There's a sense of it needs a location if you want it to have a stable sense of use for you, right? Regular interaction and use, not just like a bubble that pops up and goes down. So you open it up very consciously, right? So the way that I do this is I walk out to the space that I want it to be, because this is also integrated with the 3D, meaning I want it to be anchored into this a locationality to this realm as well. So I walk out to the space. I move into a very internal space within myself of what I'm doing to utilize those dimensional realms. Then I basically draw the top part of the star up here all the way across in a location outside that point. I find a tree. So this is how you anchor it. I found it's basically a grounding cord, something that goes all the way through the earth to be your center point, okay, at that top point of the triangle. And then I create the bottom part of the triangle all the way down into the earth and cutting across. Now both points hold in the center of that tree. Now at first that feels very two-dimensional, okay, and my interaction with it visually, meaning I'm watching myself draw it, I'm drawing it very intentionally, as if I'm pointing my third eye and creating it, like I'm drawing it like a laser. I'm also holding onto that tree as that center point of stability, of the grounding cord that goes all the way through. That's my anchor into this dimensional realm in the 3D. Then I spin it. So I spin the top one almost like a hula hoop. I spin it this way as if it's around the waist of the tree, and I spin it. I give a sense of momentum to it. Then I spin the top one this way. So I push down and it starts spinning this way. And this creates a sense of a gyroscope. So then the pocket opens, okay, and it becomes a sphere. It's no longer two-dimensional. It moves into three-dimensional, even further and further in terms of dimensional space. It's opening more and more with the momentum of that spin. Sometimes I spin it strong if I want it to be there. And then essentially that center acts almost like a toroidal field. It holds the momentum to keep the pace feeding itself into that space. So once the pocket or the sphere is open, it can hold those energies. Then I utilize my sense of psychic boundaries, guidelines, and direct all of the energies and entities into that created construct, that created sphere. I ask them to stay there until they're called upon and I can utilize their space, but that is their designated space. I thank the tree. I give a sense of just gratitude for the service of holding that sense of stability and energy there in these dimensional planes, and then I leave it. Now, I will say, if I'm not utilizing that space, I do shut it down, meaning I go out and I stop the spin. I put my hand back on the tree and I essentially set the intention to close down the dimensional aspect of it. So I flatten out the two sides of the triangle to make them more two-dimensional, like a piece of paper. So they stop spinning and essentially that pocket closes up. It almost looks like a portal to me when it first starts, and then it poof, like I just see it, it'll pop open. I will say, and I don't know if this is useful, but the frequency at which you spin it, the speed, the momentum that you give it, starts to pulse and holds a different color with how fast it's spinning. That also has to do with how many entities and energies it's holding there. Meaning if I spin it fast, it starts to feel like it moves up in dimensional vibration and it can hold more energies and more entities. The slower, a little bit more denser, heavier, it doesn't hold as many energies or entities. I've just noticed that the colors also change with that. So also I will say, if you work and you travel, I teach lectures and I go around and all over, and so sometimes I take this with me almost like a balloon, or I will pop it up where I am, a little outside of the hotel room or a little where I am, if I have a booth somewhere, or I'll have a sense of space, only if it's needed in terms of the flow and how many energies and entities you're dealing with, and if you need that sense of spaciousness for it. But it can be incredibly useful if you need it. If you need it, it can be pivotal and life-changing to have a sense of spaciousness and just flow and direction to how you would like to interact with the non-physical realm. This is all in the sense of your own free will and sovereignty, and the non-physical will honor that if you utilize it and set it up. I hope that is helpful to you. Mwah. Many blessings. Like I said, I will be back here next week with another video. Reach out if you have a question or you'd like a session or would like more training in your own personal gifts. Blessings.